All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And apparently there is a straw that hath broke the camel of the Yang Gang's back, and that is the recent media blackout, as pointed out by Scott Santons 48 hours ago, that has created a certain amount of outrage amongst the Yang Gang, and it seems to be the tipping point that is actually finally creating a call to action in which certain people are not only contacting and expressing their frustration with advertisers, but showing other people how to do it. So we're actually going to see what's going on, what it's in response to, and whether or not these calls to action are actually effective. So Cody, tell us what's going on.
Of course. So, yes, you said over the weekend there was a big slip up with MSNBC in reference to that. I'm going to walk you guys through that right now. But the big thing that's kind of happened over the last few days, as you pointed out, has been the reaction. So what happened, first of all, is that MSNBC apologized and was actually forced into issuing an on-air correction for leaving Andrew Yang off the polling graphic, which is very interesting. For what I know about these media organizations, they don't necessarily love things like on-air corrections. They love doing them off-air about 2 days later, because then it's like, what, we corrected it, but no, they hate having to say, actually, we're wrong. And for those of you who didn't see it, who were a little bit behind on this happened a couple days ago. So, but November 17th, today we're filming on the 19th. Just happened a few days ago, but you'll notice that, once again, what drives me crazy, and this isn't only an MSNBC thing, all these companies do this, these graphics come out and they're just asymmetrical. Like, why wouldn't there be a 12th candidate on this graphic? Why is there 11 candidates on a graphic that was designed for 12? Especially when you would find out that Andrew Yang probably should go about here-ish on this graphic. Oh, you can't see my cursor. Somewhere between Cory Booker and Tulsi Gabbard, or maybe above Cory Booker. Or if you want to do it alphabetically, he would come after Tom Steyer. Idea being he was at 3% of the poll. So Andrew Yang himself even was forced to come out and say, hey, not only is this, because again, I'll show in a second, Scott Santos put a pretty good tweet out if you guys hadn't seen it, just kind of putting together exactly what happened. But as we said, they did issue a correction. Not only was it an on-air correction, they actually tweeted this out from the actual show on MSNBC, saying, earlier on Up, we aired a poll graphic that inadvertently left off Andrew Yang. This was a mistake we've since corrected. We apologize to Mr. Yang. Here's the correct graphic. Now, what's very interesting is the previous graphic had 11 candidates on it. This one has, just doing math in my head, but like 14. Again, it includes a lot more candidates, or 15, 16 maybe even. I really can't count. Point being, they didn't apologize to leaving off Michael Bennett. They didn't apologize to leaving off Sestak and Delaney and Williamson, any of these people that were left off the other graphic and are now there. They only apologized to one, and that was Mr. Yang. Now, again, Andrew Yang was the only candidate of these people that was added later that actually should have been there in the first place. It just is funny how they had to include everyone. There almost was this sense of, these are all the candidates we're going to include. And then they say, well, no, we have to include everyone. And they take that as, oh, okay, cool. So that means Marianne Williamson, my man John Delaney, is it Wayne Sestak? No.
Yeah, that's how I've heard it pronounced.
Wayne?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Good for me. Even not sure. Even the Harambe level was there, Or none of these. I think none of these.
I wasn't sure about the Wayne part, but the Sestak part. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Keep going.
Point being, it's kind of old news now, but it's not very often you see these media networks forced to issue on-air corrections while the show was almost still running, I believe, and then go to Twitter and issue corrections as well. However, this has been probably, I believe, actually, let me get this right for you guys, but I believe it was Zach Grauman who said this, that this was the, as the campaign's been counting, the campaign, I believe, is to be the 16th time they have been slighted by the media like this.
Oh, it's been bad.
15th.
Dude.
Here we go. So according to Zach Grauman, who again is pretty much helping lead the campaign for Andrew Yang, according to the campaign, this is the 15th time they feel they've been had to have been apologized to for making a mistake like this. So the Yang Gang is very excited for the 16th. Well, the Yang Gang, it also seems like, isn't looking forward to sitting on their hands and waiting for this next apology, because this is what I found so interesting. As you noted, we have seen this happen, oh my God, so many times. I'm just going to, while I'm talking to you guys right now, scroll through this really great thread by Scott Santons, showing you guys all the times they've kind of left them off this stuff. But one thing we've noticed is we've seen people in the Yang Gang reach out to the networks themselves. As Zach Garland pointed out, networks have apologized to the campaign 15, 16 times now. They count 15 at least. I would not be, 15 is probably about right. They've received apologies. Not all from MSNBC, but as I'm scrolling through this list, you will notice there is a lot of MSNBC. Also, I'm at October 31st. We're back about 3 weeks right now. And it keeps going. But we haven't seen from the Yang Gang too much more beyond taking to the internet, and I'm saying a lot of stuff taking to the internet. They're letting these networks know directly. However, we might have been starting to see right here the next line kind of come, and we've seen this. We'll show in a little bit about the effectiveness of it, but we're actually seeing now people look. Here we go. This is a tweet from Anderson, who I believe on Twitter put this out. But I've noticed a lot of people echoing this sentiment. It's one I singled out here was the notion to tweet to MSNBC sponsored about the Yang Media Blackout. We've seen this for months, but you're now seeing it's rolling up to make sure call the actual people and complain. They're actually getting the numbers to call and complain, and they write a complaint letter to NBC News. Attached is actually the address you would send the letter to if you were to get it. Now, what's really, really interesting is this has been one thing we've seen, like I said, in the past a little bit, this idea of like, hey, let these networks know we're not happy about what they're doing. I mean, look, Brian Roberts at Comcast.com's email is attached here on the thing because it's time to let people know. Here's a lot because here's a better question. Does it work if it's always retroactive apologies, right? If they're always apologizing for having done it, is it really working?
Yeah, one of the best, one of my friends has this awesome phrase that he says to his kids whenever they say, oh, I forgot. And it really affected me, and it's why I've stopped saying, oh, I forgot. And I've just tried to articulate a different emotion. He said, we forget things that are not important to us. You know what I'm saying?
It's a good point, because it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've really realized, and it affected me because now when I forget things, I think, wow, it must mean it really, truly wasn't that important to me. Why am I thinking it's not that important? And should I just exit out of my life? So I really think when it comes to the media, they screw up on things they do not like, nor care about screwing up on. You know, and at that point, you need to reevaluate, like, why are you not acting professionally with this campaign while you're acting professionally with the others? And it is because of a personal bias that is not journalistic. You know what I'm saying? And that needs to be called out. It's really that simple.
Of course. And then again, I mean, we have someone who sent a letter to Mr. Roberts right here. Here's an email one of our friends on Twitter let us use, and basically just here's what they're actually sending are to the networks, because it's happened a bunch of times. But again, I always wonder, like, we keep getting the Yang Gang more or less and keeps getting apologies over and over and over and over again. It's always, oh, sorry, we left him off again. Because the funny thing is, and like you guys have been following this, a lot of times it's an asymmetrical graphic. It's like there's a person missing, and it's always not always, but frequently Andrew Yang. So that's the thing, and we'll have the letter here. I'll have the links so you guys can read through all this yourselves later and just see this is what the Yang Gang's actually saying and writing to stuff. But we've seen a second idea starting to get floated around. This the last few minutes here, I'm trying to recap you guys, but because the story is interesting and I want to walk you through exactly what is happening. It's not just that these media companies run this, people complain on Twitter and it kind of goes away. It is getting to the point now they're forced to apologize. Like I said, on-air corrections are kind of rare just because, one, they require more resources than a posted correction later, and two, they're just not as fun. It's a little bit more embarrassing to have to go on air and issue a correction like that. So they're not typical. It is big to get this stuff. I mean, I always joke it's almost kind of like the mafia. Like, we apologize to Mr. Yang so much for leaving him off. Like, like, what happened? Like, you left him off like 4 hours ago. He's off the graphic. We are so sorry, Mr. Yang, that we left you off the graphic. Please forgive us. Like, there are always big apologies. But here is the next step that we're
because it's the only thing they listen to is public outrage.
Yes, and again, I've seen these sentiments echoed other places online. I just wanted to highlight this. Actually, our good friend over at Nerds Ring, Tom.
Okay.
Good friend of the show.
Yeah. I remember his tweet from yesterday.
Yeah, Seahawks fan, unfortunately, but good guy. Yeah. Anyway, he tweeted this out. The idea of now we're seeing people in the Yang Gang moving on to the next step. And we're going to kind of highlight here kind of what this means is why it is kind of the next step. Because it's one thing to complain to these networks and then issue corrections over and over again. And you get apologies mostly. But we are now seeing people starting to look towards the sponsors. Now, I don't have anything confirmed yet of actual 100%, boycotting a Yang motivated boycott against any sponsors. Nothing like that yet. However, we are starting to see the next thing of it, which is moving towards actually targeting the individual sponsors of these organizations. Now, why does this matter? It's a couple tweets, right? Doesn't mean too much. Well, again, I've seen more of these sentiments echoed. These are the ones I pulled. But this is not a strategy that has no... What's the word I'm looking for? I guess it works is a better way to put it. I'm going to pull a GQ article up. Now, slightly different scenarios, but this GQ article is from August of this year, and it says Tucker Carlson's show bled 70 advertisers in less than a year.
Wow.
Tucker Carlson has been flirting with, and then they'll get into some of the stuff he talks about, but what I really wanted to highlight here is the boycotts had a definite impact. In April of this year, Variety reported that ad dollars attached to Tucker Carlson Tonight fell 47.8% to 48.3 million from almost 92 million, as seen on Chicago Time. That was from 17 to 18, I believe.
Okay.
Long gone are blue chip advertisers like Lexus and Samsung, filling the void to the likes of Home Chef and Aspen Dental, along with the promos for Fox News programs. Anecdotally, if you ever watch Fox News around when he's on, it is weird. It's like you're watching regular TV all of a sudden, and then because for the most part, they don't mind running the daytime Fox programming. Is a lot of just kind of like boring news stuff, a little bit regular. And all of a sudden, the advertiser switched to the cybersecurity, like we do small business. I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Shout out to the My Pillows guy. My Pillows is taking over the network because of this. But my point being is when advertisers start getting targeted for, there's a lot of boycotts, but honestly, boycotts is one thing. All you really have to do is juxtapose, hey, these advertisers supporting fake news that are leaving out a candidate, and basically bad press associated with the name of an advertiser works, man, and they run for the hills. And seeing the Yang Gang finally say, what do we have to do to stop getting apologies and finally get these companies to just, I have bad news though. There's nothing you could do to get some of these journalists to start doing their jobs and just, dude, again, I want to go back and highlight that graphic for you guys.
That's why it's so weird.
I'm not going to say that I have like people say they have OCD and stuff. I don't know. I don't think I do, but I will say this. It drives me crazy to see things asymmetrical like this for seemingly no reason. What was the point? You really why couldn't they just put everyone else less than 4? Like what less than 1 everyone else. It bothers me almost like as like a person, you think like if they made this graphic,
also
so it does feel, my only thing I want to get across, and I want to see what your opinion on this is, when you see it look like this, it almost does feel intentional, whether it is or isn't, because it looks unnatural having one missing spot, so it makes it feel intentional.
My OCD just totally kicks in with that one empty spot. It's not, from a graphic design perspective, which is what you're doing when you're making these chyrons, you know what I'm saying? From a graphic design perspective, it's just ugly to have that one spot empty. And
it also is not unusual for what we've been seeing with these. Here's another one. Like, why go for this one?
Or even it out, or like, I don't know if it's just
exactly.
an automated fill-in or what it is. But
would you also agree that it does add to that kind of extra just subliminal level of like, this feels like it's intentional? Because it's like, it'd be one thing if there was 12 people on here and Yang wasn't one of them, and it was like that. Like,
I get that. For example, there's plenty of autofill functions when you have live television. A lot of information is coming in rapidly. So there's a lot of autofill functions on many of these softwares that say, look, if you give us 7 data sets, we will evenly distribute it across the screen. And first it's going to go 3, and then it's going to go 3, and then it's going to go 1. So you might question, why are there 2 empty slots? If we were to redesign it in Photoshop and have more time, it obviously would look a lot better. But if you're dealing with autofill functions, then it's going to come out maybe possibly looking a little bit a little bit lackluster. And so there is an excuse for why there's an open fill, but that excuse doesn't carry on to, okay, well then why are you, if you're using autofills, then why is there somebody who's lower on the totem pole in terms of votes, or in terms of electoral success, or in terms of individual donors or money raised? This one right here, Scott Santons brings up a good point. Any one shortcoming in a lot of these graphics during the hashtag Yang Media Blackout could be described through myriad explanations, okay? But when all 4 boxes are checked, really there's nothing left other than, okay, you did it on purpose. It's almost like forensics in court, where it's just like, well, the gun has your fingerprints on it. Well, that could be because once upon a time I held it. You know what I'm saying?
At a certain
point,
it
was also found on the body, and there's also soot on your face from the explosion.
Really quickly, so I want to get to make sure we have time for this, is, again, you were talking about earlier why it is, because there's one thing else I'll highlight in a minute here, but why is it effective, one, to not only call and reach out to organizations directly, but also advertisers uniquely? Like, what makes this an effective method? Because, like I said, I've seen people upset on Twitter, but what I noticed seems to be the next step, just in general from this stuff, is being upset on Twitter. That next real-world applications generally is reaching out directly to the people broadcasting what you would disapprove with, or the advertisers behind it. And are those effective methods is kind of what I'm asking.
Well, obviously there's... in the world we live in, the efficacy cannot be understated. By and large, people just talk out of their rear ends, and they say, "Oh, we're going to boycott this or boycott that." And generally, I think boycotts are a little bit silly and ineffective. But successful boycotts can be very successful, as we've noticed, several times. That's the whole reason why the Color of Change started, was literally just to boycott advertisers that didn't like Glenn Beck. And what's funny though is he ended up just creating his own media empire, so I guess I don't think it was that effective if you actually studied the long term. But anyway, it depends on what you're trying to do. Like, for example, generally it's believed, and this is a calculus that I've heard from multiple elected officials. I don't know where it comes from, so I'd be really interested if somebody in the chat or if somebody in the comments could direct me towards this source. But I've heard from multiple sources that every time a constituent reaches out, it's generally believed that there's 500 to 800 people that share the same opinion. So if you get, if you have a constituency of 400,000 people and you're the mayor of a city with 400,000 people, and, you get 50 phone calls about, I'm outraged about X, Y, or Z thing, or else, I advocate for this policy, I think we got to pass it. If you get 50 of those phone calls, well, you can better believe there's 30,000, 40,000 people that feel that way as well. And if you have an election season coming up where you need 50,000 votes for that measure to pass, holy smoke, you're already 3/5 away there. There's big public support for it, So there's this mental calculus you can do that's very rudimentary and simple. But it's believed that for every phone call you get, there's, 500 to 800 people that feel the same way. I actually have read a lot of data suggesting that reaching out to your congressman may not be the most effective way of advocating positively for legislation, but is a very effective form of protest, because it's the biggest annoyance to all of the staffers, and it'll actually fill up their voicemail boxes, which they, need to function. And that's one of the bigger annoyances. People oftentimes always talk about.
Well, really quick, I just want to highlight. Someone who was tweeting out already said that they had they tried to call and their mailbox was full. So
yeah, that's actually a good sign.
Or maybe MSNBC just gets so many calls complaining about them all the time. You literally can't get in. Like there's so much complaints against them. They don't know who's complaining anymore. They're like, you guys are complaining too. Sorry, man. Like the mailbox is full. You got the other people complaining right now. But yeah, there is obviously people, like you said. This is probably a larger annoyance when they can't. Take calls.
One of the tweets, the woman said she's writing a letter and sending it to the Rockefeller Center in New York, and she posted the address that she's sending to complain right to. Right there,
along with the email.
If
you would like to do the same, by the way, this is the address and the email to use.
Yeah. I think that's actually effective for advertisers, because advertisers as private companies still have to have, the mail room, so on and so forth. And they'll be a lot more affected. The mail room in Congress is a totally different story. In fact, writing a letter to your congressman, I question the efficacy, and a lot of people do, in comparison to phone calling or personalized emails, because what happens when you call Congress is actually they up to the high level staffers, all the mail gets checked for explosives, ricin, all of that other stuff that I probably shouldn't say so the Google algorithm doesn't derank this video. But they actually do security checks on the mail. And that process can actually add like an extra 24 to 48 hours to the letter getting to you. And to try and re-speed up the process, what many of the staffers and the congressmen do is they actually opt into a system where the security people that scan the letter, that open and check the letter, actually just scan it into a database and email the PDF of what the letter was to the congressman or the staffer, so they can instantaneously read it on their smartphones and on their tablets. So at the end of the day, if your congressman is just going to be getting a letter, an email PDF, maybe you just should have emailed them the PDF. Staffers themselves say that email is the easiest to get through. So I think if the Yang Gang is trying to do a hashtag Yang Media Blackout, even though they're huge internet people, perhaps this letter thing is, in my opinion, would be more attention getting and would be more difficult to brush off. The best form of protest I've ever heard, and if the Yang Gang does this, that I just think they're awesome, was one time a guy wrote a complaint letter, and to make sure that the Senate got it, he ordered a pizza and had his complaint letter written as like a gift note on the pizza, and had the pizza pie sent to the Senate building. Somebody had to collect the pizza on behalf of their congressman, which I thought was really, really funny. So Anyway, I love hearing that the Yang Gang is saying, hey, enough of this, and demanding an explanation. I believe you should always challenge the institution, because if it's a strong institution, it will stand. If it's a weak institution, it will not. And many of these media corporations are the worst combination of greed and cowardice simultaneously, that makes their very reckless media behaviors a very large threat to our democracy. People don't realize how much they control how much we think. When Donald Trump says, number one enemy of the people, I don't think he's making a personal indictment of any one individual reporter, as much as he's saying the group think and the irresponsible media practices that are really influencing how we think and how we operate with people is tearing harder at the social fabric than pretty much any other branch of government in our society. And that needs to be addressed. That needs to be checked. And if the Yang Gang can be part of checking and balancing that power of the fourth branch of government through writing letters, I'm all for it. I think it's great. So, Cody, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, no, I would just agree a little bit. I would say anecdotally, we were in, just kind of a little. Anecdotally is the word I'm looking for. Anyway, we were in Las Vegas hanging out with a lot of the Yang Gang over the weekend while this event took place. And like I said, just being there with a lot of the Yang Gang when this people happened, there was more of a sense of like, wow, this is getting really fun. I think there's always been this sense of like, at a certain point, Yang will be big enough for the Loft to stop doing it, and it seems like he is getting bigger, and it's that time hasn't come yet. I mean, speaking of, we'll do a video in a little bit talking more about the First and the West dinner, but I've noticed the Hill in particular has been posting a lot of video content from the First and the West speech he gave, even though we will talk again more about it when he spoke and how it went. Point being, it does seem to be the sense that like it feels like Yang should be more popular, to where this shouldn't be happening to him like this as much as it is. And it does feel like this is kind of like that tipping point. People finally are saying enough is enough. And like I said, if I have to write a letter to an advertiser to make sure enough is enough, so be it. Seems to be the point people are reaching. I think that's definitely worth noting, because I think it also shows that if it is intentional, the idea would be to demoralize their courage and just make it so it's impossible for the guy to get his name out there. So it is worth noting, even with him being left off a lot of these graphics on news networks, the work he's doing other places, people are hearing about him and know about him more and more and more. So that's, again, we'll show you guys some videos of everyone who came out to Las Vegas over the weekend. There's a lot of people there from all over. I mean, we were talking to people from the East Coast of the United States of America and from Canada that came out to Las Vegas for the weekend. So it was a lot of fun. We'll talk more about that. But like I said, I think that's what we're seeing. The sense of how can we still kind of getting further? He's spending more on ads. He's becoming more legitimate. He's getting more involved in DC, and they still leave him off. Why is this happening? What do we have to do? And I think it is cool seeing people not cool, obviously, preferably not to see it, but that point is finally being reached from people. And we've pointed out, advertisers, if you want to let MSNBC know you're mad at them, make sure someone at one of their advertisers pick up a phone and say, why am I getting phone calls about the stuff you guys are doing? Because trust me, if I'm at an advertising firm and someone keeps giving us phone calls or complaining about how we support MSNBC in their crusade to exclude Andrew Yang from the presidential, they're going to say, why am I getting these phone calls? I don't get them from my other people I work with. I don't want people not buying, I don't know, I forgot the top of my head. I'm assuming Dasani, whatever. You know what I mean? I don't want people not buying my product because of things you guys are doing is essentially what's going to happen. And that's money talks, man. That's how you get people to listen.
I agree. Money talks. That's how you get people listening. Money and feet. Because there's some things, as Andrew Yang says, that money cannot do.
That almost sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Money and feet talk, anyway.
Well, you vote with your feet and you vote with your dollars. That's what my dad always said.
Good point.
Hashtag dad quotes. Anyway, let us know what you guys think. If you haven't a chance to like the video, please like. If you haven't a chance to subscribe yet, please subscribe. If you have a comment for the video, please comment below. Let us know what your opinions are. If you also want to leave a comment in our voicemail box, we've cleared out our voicemail box. It's ready for a bunch of new voicemails. Call us at 1-833-PSP-RADIO. Also, don't forget to contribute to the channel in the PayPal link below that is in the description. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you in the next video.